Kenya is set to take an unprecedented step in healing the scars left by years of protest-related violence after President William Ruto unveiled a first-of-its-kind framework to compensate victims of demonstrations and riots, a move hailed as both historic and transformative for the nation's human rights culture. At the heart of this initiative is Professor Makau Mutua, the President's senior advisor on constitutional affairs and human rights, who has been tasked with spearheading their 120-day plan to design and coordinate the compensation process. The task force will draw representatives from the Office of the President, the Office of the Attorney General, the National Treasury, the Ministry of Interior and other critical state agencies. In a presidential proclamation issued on Friday, Ruto said the initiative aims to balance constitutional freedoms with civic responsibility, acknowledging the role of the 2010 Constitution in matters demonstrations and picketing as a form of expression. However, the president pointed out that some of these protests have unfortunately escalated into violence, leading to injuries and loss of lives. President Ruto's decision follows a recent surge of protests across the country, which led to multiple injuries and fatalities, including police officers. The government's hesitation to compensate the affected drew sharp criticism, particularly from the political opposition. Among the vocal critics, as recent as June this year, has been former Prime Minister Raila Odinga.
There's issue of people who are injured, some people who died during that time. I want today to say that we should do compensation to families of those who died and those who were injured, so that we can have a closure to this chapter of our national history.
Professor Makau Mutua, in response to the appointment on his X account, thanked President Ruto, terming the action as bold, unprecedented and historic in transforming Kenya's human rights culture.
So if you are compensating the victims for protest,
compensation of victims of protests was among the 10-point agenda agreed upon by President Ruto and Raila Odinga in the formation of the broad-based government. However, details on the criteria for identifying victims, the size of compensation and the funding model remains undisclosed.